Hey everybody, welcome to the Survivor Org podcast. I'm your host, Colin Connors. With me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Mr. Dennis Patrick. Dennis, say hi.
Hey.
And today, guys, we have a very special guest from Survivor Nicaragua, Dr. Jill.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. So, Jill, what's going on in your life?
Not much. My season was 2 years ago, so mostly I'm just getting back to my normal life. I'm a doctor, and I have sons that are 13 and 15, so I've been busy they're swimmers, so going to water polo matches and swimming and getting back into bike racing, starting to win some bike races, and growing my hair out to the long blonde mane that it used to be before Survivor.
Why did you not have the mane for Survivor?
Well, it's some of that casting stuff we can't talk about, but let's just say, obviously when you have 20 people out there, at first it's like confusing, like who are they? And, it's hard to tell them apart. So casting's very aware of that, so they will pick people based on some physical attributes. And especially in my season, it was so difficult because there were 10 older people. And so, it wasn't like I was like the old one or, you can easily identify. So I think my own personal opinion is that I look too much like Holly with my, I had the time that I was cast, I had short blonde hair. Actually, the time I sent my tape in, I didn't even get cast for my season because I had been like a super fan since forever. So I had applied for years and years. And for Nicaragua, I don't know if you've heard this story, but I didn't even apply. I had applied a couple years ago when I had long blonde hair. And when they called me out of the blue and they're like, are you still interested in Survivor? And send us an updated file. And at the time I had short blonde hair and they call me right back and they're like, this is not going to work. I'm like, well, how do you feel about redheads? And they're like, I don't know. See how it goes. So I went to grocery store immediately, got red dye that day, fired my video off, and they just loved it. So I was a redhead for 2 years.
Well, I didn't realize that they would go so far as to ask survivors to change their hair color. That's amazing.
Well, they didn't really ask me. They just, and she said that when I called back, she said, the blonde is not going to work. So what are you going to say? This is your like big shot, to be on Survivor. And I'm like, well, what color will work? Purple, blue? I'll do whatever, you want. So, but yeah, they look at that. And they also look at demographics. Obviously, every year they have a lot of contestants for LA, but, they do look at like where you are in the country and stuff. And all that, I'm sure, goes into picking a cast for the show.
Cool. Well, you mentioned earlier that you were a super fan. How long have you been a fan?
I wish I could say I've never missed an episode, but I actually did not watch the first show. And my sister-in-law called me kind of like midpoint in Survivor Australia, shortly after, Mike Skupin killed his pig. And she's like, you have to watch the show, blah, blah, blah. And so I just tuned in just kind of half-heartedly. And, oh, my gosh, I was hooked. So from then point on, I had never missed a show.
Cool. And how long have you been applying?
I applied right after that season. I applied. And at that time in the casting process, they would send you to like these 10 different cities, and the casting would go out and meet you at like a CBS affiliate, and they'd do more extended taping of you. So I got called back right away. I went to Pittsburgh, and the interview went great. Or no, the first year I got called back, I went to Chicago. The interview went fantastic. I'm like, this is great. I'm going to be on. 2 weeks later, I'm at home. They call. They're like, you're not quite what we're looking for. Keep applying. And I was like, are you kidding me? And so I kept applying, and 2 years later, I got called to Pittsburgh. Same thing, went down there, went great. I'm going to be on, and didn't hear anything back. So I think in like 2009 was the last time I applied, and I didn't hear anything back after that. So I'm like, that's it. I'm done applying. And then boom, out of the blue, a year later, they called me when I didn't even apply. So if you are listening and you are applying, and how can I get on the show? I would just say, you know what? I'm living proof that you can get on. So just keep applying, and they do look at old tapes. They do keep files. So keep applying.
That's really good news for all the potential Survivor players out there. I know I'm one of them, hoping one day to get on. Let's go ahead and let's talk about your season.
Okie doke.
What did you think about the Medallion of Power as a big Survivor fan?
That was like idiotic. I know why they did it. They did it because they were worried that the old people, my tribe basically, was not going to be able to keep up with the youngers, and we would get pummeled in challenges. And the idiocy of it is that Anytime it was used, they would have won the challenge anyway. So when the kids won it their first time, they smoked us in the challenge. They could have given us an extra half hour. We wouldn't have caught up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the time that we used it, we would have beat them straight up. So they kind of thought it was going to equal out, but it didn't. And oh, it was just unfortunate, and you could tell it was not a keeper. They've never done it since, and they even in my season, I don't know if you know this, but they like dumbed down the challenges. I mean, I got on Survivor, and that was the platform I campaigned under. I'm so tired of these women getting on and just sucking in challenges. I was like, put me on, let me play, coach, you know, and so. That's kind of why they picked me or was interested, because they did want some old people who could do well in challenges. And when I get there, instead of all the dragging sleds and climbing up mountains and shoving out of, the ring and that kind of challenges, it's all like arcade game stuff. It was horrible.
Yeah, throwing the ball up and having it go through the little maze thingy and you had to catch it.
Yeah, it was just, it was frustrating. So, but I don't know. That's Survivor.
Mm-hmm. How about Jimmy Johnson? What kind of impact did he have with you guys?
It's what do you mean by impact exactly?
Well, were you starstruck? Was he an immediate target?
No, not immediate target. Actually, here's a funny little anecdote. Do you like these little anecdotal vignettes kind of thing?
Oh, they're perfect. They're
okay.
Exactly.
So, and then before, obviously before you get on the show, you are there for a while and you're not speaking and not talking. So I walk into the room and I see this guy and he gives me this big, huge smile, like, "Hey, Jill." He didn't say anything, but it was just like smile of recognition, super friendly, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like one of my teachers, and in all the places in the universe, they have somebody I know. I'm not going to be on the show. They're going to boot me off. So I'm like, what do I do? Do I tell them I know this guy? What do I do? What do I do? So I'm like going through my head of like all my teachers, and then I, come up blank. So I'm like, all right, maybe it was one of my coaches, because I was on the track team in college. So I'm going through all the coaches. I'm like, all right, it wasn't my coach. Maybe it was like one of the football coaches, because we used to work out with them. And then as soon as I got to football, I'm like, you idiot, that's Jimmy Johnson. I was like, oh my God, So it was kind of just so out of context. I recognized him, but I couldn't place him right away. So it was kind of funny. But as far as him being a target, not at all. Because when you're out there, I mean, people were like, oh, is it really hard? But it's not that hard. It is 20 times harder than we could ever tell you. Just if you're watching the season now in the Philippines where they're getting rained on, they might show like, oh, they're getting rained on. It's pretty miserable. What they don't show is the rain like pouring down the back of your neck from midnight till 4 a.m. and you're up and you haven't slept. And it's really hard to capture that in an hour's show, And out there, it's very stripped bare and raw, and everyone is just taken really at their core and how much metal they have. And I'll tell you what, he worked his butt off around camp. He really was an accomplished fisherman. He was the only one who could throw this casting net that we won. And so he was extremely well liked. And I mean, not by everybody, but it wasn't like, oh, that's Jimmy Johnson. He's rich. Let's vote him off. There was definitely none of that going on.
Cool. And I remember watching Jimmy T try to throw the cast net the episode after Jimmy Johnson got voted out and just it not working at all.
Yeah, we expected better out of Gloucester fishermen, actually.
What was your relationship with him like?
Jimmy T, actually, within like 2 minutes of hitting the beach, he comes running up to me and he's like, "Do you want to be in the alliance? Me and the girls. Do you want in or out? In or out? Now." And I was just like, in, okay. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy, he is like that in real life. He's just like over the top and stuff. And he and I actually had that early alliance, which they don't show like half the stuff, not even a quarter of the stuff that goes on. But we found the first clue to the hidden immunity idol when we went for water together. And it was much more obscure than the one I ended up solving the next one. But so we were actually loosely aligned, and then finally one day I pulled him aside and I was like, listen, this is not working for me. He would just go off on people all the time, and was really ticking everybody off. And so we parted ways. But he's an honorable player. He's a good guy. He's a family guy, and I love him to death now. He's just, was kind of a hothead in the game.
Cool. A lot of people didn't get to see anything about Purple Kelly. Can you tell us about who she is and if she talks?
She is a really nice girl. It's unfortunate that happened. I think that was, I don't know why they did that. Obviously, they went out of their way to exclude her. My guess is that it was punitive for, her quitting or whatever. She was just a very sweet girl. She, actually, my husband and I were talking about, how attractive she is because we were looking at some of the girls on this season, and he said that, Purple Kelly is about she's probably the prettiest girl you've ever been around in person, in your life that isn't, that's a real person, it's not like a supermodel or whatever. She's absolutely gorgeous. She's very sweet. She's very nice. She does have a fun personality, but she's 20, so at 20 years old, you don't have the life experiences and you're not exactly who you are going to be. So she's just a kid.
Yeah, well, that's the popular speculation online, was that she got the bad edit because she quit, and Nyanka only even got an edit because she was so controversial.
Well, Nyanka's good TV. Make no mistake about that. I mean, you definitely weren't putting her in the closet because there was all kinds of people talking at the water cooler about stuff that she said and did. So, it was much easier to do that with Purple Kelly. I'm not sure you could have done it with Nyanka.
Why did you align with Marty?
I don't know. I just, again, when you're out there, you just get a feel for somebody, and we have a lot in common. We're both about the same age. He's a little older than I am, but we're both, married with kids. We both have an athletic background. He wrestled in college. I was on the track team. He still climbs and does a lot of mountain biking, and I'm a amateur cyclist. And I don't know, we just kind of had a lot in common, and we just clicked.
Cool. On the show, it kind of looked like that he was pulling you along. Did you do a lot more for that alliance?
Yeah, it depends on who you ask. I mean, even Marty, I think, will admit to it. For some reason, I got the sidekick edit, and I think it's because I was kind of boring and not exactly. I'm kind of the opposite of Nyanka. I just didn't lose my mind and shoot my mouth off a lot. And plus, when I was out there, I mean, I'm like a married conservative Christian person, and it was very apparent to me. Every time I opened my mouth, I did not want to have to go back to my church and answer to, why did you do this? Why did you say this? Did you curse? Did you, and so I was always thinking that, and that makes for, unfortunately, really, really boring TV, apparently. So I think they were happy to have me do that sidekick edit, but really, I mean, if you ask me, I was kind of the one running the show because I did have Marty going on. He was my human shield. And I tell you what, Marty, I love him and we were aligned, but he just ticked everybody off. I would all the time have to go around and sort of calm people down about him too, because he and Tyrone almost got into a fist fight over the building. And so I would have to go around and smooth things over. And I guess maybe that's what women do. The guys are kind of bumping chests and the women keep everyone calm and in line. But I'm sorry, what was the question? Yeah.
How did
I was running? So yeah, I solved that immunity idol and gave it to him, and that's my biggest regret in the game. I maybe could have gone further, and I don't know if I'd have made it to the merge because I was the last one pre-merge, and if I'd have kept the idol for myself and played it, then I would have gone into the merge, and maybe I'd have been able to do something where he wouldn't. I don't know. That's Survivor's biggest what if game there ever was. So I don't know.
Well, I can say I think you would have fared better than Marty at the merge because once the merge would have happened, you kind of would have sort of laid low like Holly.
Yeah, I probably would have tried to get back with Holly and Chase and some of the others. And so I think it's one of those game changers that it probably would have flipped. The people who went out in the beginning probably would have flipped to the end. That's what I would try to do anyways. But, who knows?
How do you feel about the Fabio win?
Fobs. You know what? A lot of people give Fobs bad press because they feel he kind of stumbled into it, and to an extent he did. I mean, I don't talk to many survivors, but Stephen Fishback is someone who I've conversed with before, just because we're kind of academic, I guess, in our thinking, and we talk about how much luck has to do with Survivor. In his season, he did something. He bumped his arm and he had to sit out a challenge. And he said that he knew that if he was in there, it would have kind of one of those things that it would have totally changed the face of the game. And, he thinks he could have won then, blah, blah, blah. So, and it literally can be who is left out on a water run or who, production pulls you aside and you miss, this conversation. And it's the tiniest little lucky thing in that game, and people really underestimate that. And Fabio is by far and away the luckiest guy on the planet because he I don't even think he consciously, like Holly or some of the people who tried to play a low key game, I don't even think he was doing that. I think he was just kind of bumbling through the game, and all the, collateral damage was going on above him. But you got to say this about Fobbs. He went on an immunity run and he won when he needed to, and he needed to because he was gone. So you can't take that away from him. And Jeff and Mark always say that the person who wins deserves to win, and he did what he needed to do to win. And he convinced Nyanka, who gave Chase her hidden immunity idol. I mean, why was she not going to vote for him? She gave him the, idol, and she turned around and, Nyanka is an athlete. She was a long jumper in college, and Fabio, said, hey, I outplayed you and I beat you, and he swung her vote. So he did what he needed to do to win. So I think he's a deserving winner.
I feel exactly the same way, and I also preach constantly about how luck is the biggest factor in Survivor. But let's shift topics a little bit. What was the best thing that happened to you while you were out there that wasn't on screen?
The best thing, it was the best thing that happened to me out there that wasn't on screen. My season was so hard as far as like the environment. I don't know if that came through in the edit or not, as far as like our resources, because I can remember just the very next season, which was shot on the same beach, when they showed it, they had all this like lumber stacked up for them and tools and like all this food that they got right at the beginning. And we called each other up. We're like, did you see that? Did you see what they got? So for me, some of the best things that happen are when literally we're not in one of those seasons like the Philippines where there's all kinds of natural coconuts that you can just run over and get. And people are like, we're so tired of eating coconuts. It's like, oh my gosh, we had like 2 coconuts washed up on the beach, and you got like a 2-inch by 2-inch square, and you felt like you were given, it was like manna from heaven, So I think some of the best moments for me actually were just when we were able to get some of those comforts, that they might not have. I mean, just something so silly as just eating a square coconut, or Jane coming back with fish. Those were probably that, or just maybe the relationships, that I made, because it was a little bit fun out there, and it kind of makes me a little bit kind of not ashamed. I don't know, nostalgic for when Survivor was, when I first started applying to the game, where it was more about surviving, and they showed more about camp life and that kind of stuff, where now it's like devolved totally into just the social backbiting power swing, which CBS seems to feel is so much more exciting. But I miss that aspect of it.
You mentioned Jane earlier. I kind of wanted to talk to you about Jane. A lot of people online complained that Jane got an unfair edit, like it was unfairly positive. What was she like in real life?
Yeah, Jane's tough because Jane set herself up very early on against Marty and I, more against him and then me by proxy because we were aligned. Jane was very talented out there. She got the fire started with her glasses, and she would catch fish. She was a really hard worker, but she was definitely out for herself and very backstabby. She turned on Marty, and Marty honestly didn't even do anything to her. And she had such venom for him. I mean, when she cast her vote, she's like, I would never let my kids play with your kids, or, something horrible. It's like, where did this come from? She has kind of maybe a hard life, or maybe she's bitter. I don't know. But or you saw that aspect of it. Actually, something they did show is when, she knew she was going to get voted out, she doused the fire on them. And I was glad they showed that, because that kind of sums up her personality. No one's an angel and no one's a devil out there. There's all a little bit of both. And they did show that a little bit about her. But, she did get a bit of a hero's edit, in my opinion. And she didn't do much to deserve that, I don't think.
Well, I actually have our very first ever fan question for you.
Oh, what? Okay.
Ashley Hoffman wants to know, what was your most favorite thing on Survivor?
My most favorite thing?
Uh-huh.
It would probably be, do you know what she means by that?
I think the thing you enjoyed the most about being out there.
Oh, okay. Like, you mean of the experience?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What was the coolest? Okay, here it is. Because like I said, I was a super fan, and it's so weird because now my family, we sit down, we watch TV, and Jeff, come on in, guys, and we show it. And then sometimes I'll look at the TV and I'll be like, And it's just me watching Survivor, and I'll look and I'll squint and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I did that, and it's just like so surreal. So that very first moment when we're lined up at the beach and we come, because you're held in these tents and stuff, you haven't spoken and stuff, and you all of a sudden you walk out onto the beach, and it's just the TV just shows you and Jeff, and that's it, But if you look where the cameras aren't pointing, there is 300 people standing behind you. There's a VIP tent with Mark Burnett and his guests. There's medical. There's every single camera that CBS owns on there. I mean, the entire village has come out to watch you in this beginning thing, and just to walk out there and see that and see Jeff, it like takes your breath away.
Who's a better doctor, you or Tarzan?
Me, definitely me. He's insane. I don't know. He's a plastic surgeon. I haven't seen any of his work, but he's very bright. You can tell by the way he talks. But I would say I would be a better doctor, hands down.
Okay. When we have him on, we're gonna have you all two have a little doctor battle.
Okay.
We're gonna do surgery on Dennis. Can you do any celebrity impersonations?
Oh my gosh, no. What gave you that idea? Who cares?
I ask everybody because we interviewed James Miller, and he did the best John Wayne I've ever heard. And Billy Garcia did a really good Randy Macho Man Savage.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is definitely not in my repertoire.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
No problem. Thank you guys for listening.
Bye, guys.